Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Anna and here we talk about all things motherhood, the joys and the struggles. And recently I've really been pouring out some struggles on you guys. I've been speaking about postpartum depression and postpartum body struggles. Today we're going to focus a little bit more on parenting and I'm going to talk about what I do and how I deal with tantrums. So as some of you may know, I have a daughter, Heidi, who's 3 years old, and another daughter, Georgia, who's 1 year old. And then during the weekdays, my nephew, Gideon, comes, and he's 2. So I've got a 1, 2, and 3 year old 5 days a week during work hours. All 3 of them know how to throw a tantrum. And I will say my kids are mainly the culprits on this one. Heidi and Georgia, even at her young age, are throwing tantrums quite often. So these last couple weeks, I've really been focusing on trying to read the tantrums, trying to figure out why they are throwing these tantrums, what's causing them, and then what can I do to root out the cause and maybe get rid of it and eliminate that tantrum. Because yes, their behavior isn't good, but if I can get rid of what's causing that behavior or hopefully improve on what's causing that behavior, hopefully I can reduce the amount of tantrums we're having. Now with my 1 year old, it's usually she wants something. So she wants food, a new diaper, a nap, or the toy that somebody just took from her. So with Georgia, it's been a lot easier, and I think if you've had a baby before, you know that there are probably 4 or 5 simple things you can check through if your baby's crying, and one of them will be the answer. But sometimes it's not, and that is also really difficult. So for the sake of this video, I'll be talking more about the tantrums of Heidi and Gideon in general and how I deal with those. The very first thing I look for when one of the kids is throwing a tantrum is what is missing. What has gone wrong in the past that is causing this tantrum potentially? And usually the culprits are they didn't get enough sleep at night, they didn't get enough sleep during their nap, they are hungry, or they haven't gotten enough me time. And some of those things are easy causes to fix and some aren't. So if I see that at 10:30 Heidi's throwing a tantrum, I realize, well, she didn't really eat a huge breakfast. She's probably just really hungry and that's making her grumpy. So then I can say, all right, maybe she can get a snack right now and that will help with her tantrum, or I can go ahead and just do lunch early, which I've done before. But this also tells me that tomorrow, when she doesn't eat a very big breakfast again, I will try to get her to eat a little bit more because I know that tantrum could be coming. And then I will also try to communicate that to Heidi. Hey, remember yesterday when you didn't eat a whole lot of breakfast and you threw a fit later? Well, we don't really want to repeat that, so let's have a bigger breakfast. So that's kind of the first thing I look for. Did they get enough sleep, enough to eat, and enough of me? And that kind of leads into the second thing. If I know they've had enough sleep, they've had good naps or a good night's sleep, and they just ate and they're still throwing a tantrum, maybe they just need attention. And I think there's such a bad culture out there about kids needing attention. And especially as kids get older, we scorn them for wanting attention. Who of us doesn't want attention as adults? So why do we put this pressure on kids to stop acting like they want attention? And we use it almost as they just want attention. Oh, she's throwing a tantrum, she just wants the attention. Oh, she dyed her hair green, she just wants the attention. It's just something we throw out there. But I've recently started to think, okay, she wants the attention. Why? Because she needs the attention. She's 3, he's 2. They need a lot of attention at that age. And if I've been editing videos or baking cookies or cooking or doing laundry and cleaning the house and doing all these things and haven't been giving them the attention they need, they might act out to get that attention. And I think it's so important that we don't just flippantly say, oh, they're just doing it for attention, because they could be doing it for attention, so I need to make sure I'm giving them that attention. It is not bad to give your kids attention. They need it, even as they get older. So if I know that Heidi or Gideon has been fed and they've had enough sleep and they're still throwing a tantrum, I will sit down and see maybe they just need me. Maybe they just need some time, and I'll sit down, and normally they'll come right to me if that is the cause. They will come straight to me and sit in my lap. So if I sit down and that happens, it's ding, I figured out what the tantrum was about. And they really just needed some attention, and that is okay. Give your kids the attention they honestly need it. Okay, so what if I've ruled out those 3 things? I know that they had good sleep, they ate well, and I spent a lot of one-on-one time with them. what's next? I mean, why are they upset? Okay, first, maybe it was an issue with a toy or sharing or something like that. Perhaps something got taken away and I have to reconcile it that way. And quite often that is the cause. They aren't sharing well or someone took something, especially with Georgia, those are her tantrums when someone takes something. So that is kind of an easy but a little frustrating fix. Like, you don't have to scream every time you don't get what you want, but hey, they're kids and that's how they express their emotions. So if that's the cause of the tantrum, then we work that out through apologizing and making sure we're sharing and the usual thing there. But again, if I get to that point and realize, well, that's not the problem either, what do I look for next? The next thing I try to look for is, has there been a change recently? In general, this could be a change, maybe moving or going on a trip that weekend, or in Heidi's case, a lot of times it's when Aaron's not at home as much as he normally is. It could also be something like changing them to a big girl bed instead of a crib, or moving the room that they sleep in, or even doing a little bit of a remodel on the house. Little changes like that can really affect your kids in ways that I wouldn't expect. So I know when we moved Heidi over to a different room and a new bed, there was definitely a lot of sleep problems that happened then, but then her attitude was affected as well. Not just because she wasn't getting enough sleep, but I could tell she was just letting herself get used to the change. So right now, my husband's been kind of busy working on a different project after work and he hasn't been able to be home as much. Heidi has noticed that change and she's noticed the absence, and I think that part of that is what's causing some of these tantrums. And that is kind of tied into the attention thing, because Erin's not home as much, she wants the attention more, and then there's tantrums. So I always keep an eye out for changes like that. And with Gideon, I can always ask his mom, hey, was something different this weekend? Or I noticed he was a lot more fussy today. She's like, yeah, he didn't sleep as well, and things like that. So just being aware of what's maybe changed in their life recently helps me read the tantrum a little bit better and see if there's not a really deep root cause in that change. Okay, so now what if they've had enough sleep, enough to eat, they aren't having a problem sharing, they've gotten the attention, there hasn't been a big change, they're still throwing tantrums? Well, side note, kids have tantrums. You're gonna have to fight with that one. But there are a couple more things I look for, and one of them is, do they have the structure that they need? Kids need routine and they thrive on routine. So if they get out of their normal everyday routine, a lot of times that can cause them to act up and have tantrums. So for example, if I normally get Heidi up around the same time and we eat breakfast at the same time, and then we usually do the same thing in the morning, playing and chores, and then nap time, and then crafts in the afternoon, and then dinner, and then playtime, and then bed, we kind of have that same schedule. Well, on days where I have to wake her up earlier, or she sleeps in, and then breakfast is late, or we have an errand to run that kind of interrupts the day, usually that's a doctor's appointment, I can about guarantee there will be an extra tantrum that day because their schedule is messed up. So what that means for me is that I just try to keep the schedule as basic as possible and easy. If I can keep them on this basic, easy schedule, then I know they'll be a little bit better behaved. But what do I do if they're having a tantrum and I know it's because we're not in our routine? Well, honestly, I just have to treat it with love and patience as I would any other tantrum, but it just gives me a heads up. On days when I know we have a doctor's appointment, or we're doing something different, or I'm gonna have to get her up early, or days where she sleeps in. Doesn't really happen that often, but a girl can dream. But during those times, I can predict the tantrum so I can be prepared. If I know the schedule will be different, then I'll know that a tantrum could be coming, and then I'll be better prepared to deal with it. The very last thing that I consider when a child is throwing a tantrum is a very simple, maybe they're just grumpy. And I think so often we forget to allow our children to have bad days. I have bad days all the time, and I know you guys do too. None of us wake up every morning in a good attitude, having a good day. We're just adults and we have a better perspective on good and bad and better control of our emotions, so we don't throw a tantrum on grumpy days. Usually. So if I can allow myself to have grumpy days and give myself some grace when I'm just not in a good mood and I'm a little bit frustrated at people, why can't I then extend that same grace towards the children in my house? Sometimes Heidi just wakes up unhappy and she just has a rough day. She's in a grumpy mood. She doesn't want to be nice. She doesn't want to like people. And that's okay. I can't force her to be in a better mood. I can do things that might help. I can make sure that she gets something she enjoys eating for one of the meals. I can make sure that we have maybe a fun dance party. I can try to spend extra time with her, read her favorite book, do things like that, but I can't force her to get out of a grumpy mood. So if you go through your checklist of tantrum causers and realize my kid is fine, why are they throwing a tantrum? Consider that maybe they're just grumpy. Maybe they're just having a bad day and they need a little bit extra grace and a little bit extra love. So what do I do then when my kid is throwing a tantrum? I now know what causes it, potentially, but what do I actually do about the tantrum? It's definitely different for each kid, and it's definitely different based on personality. For Georgia, I try to fill her immediate needs, but I'm also careful as I do it. If she's throwing a fit because she wants her milk that she just dropped on the floor, I will hold it and let her see it, but then wait for her to calm down before I actually give it to her, so I'm not teaching her that tantrums get results. I want her to get calmed before she gets what she wants, and sometimes that's pretty difficult to do. If it's a sharing problem with Georgia, I try to figure out who had the toy first, if it was taken from her, if she tried to take something else, and then act appropriately. For Gideon, he's a lot softer of a kid, so his tantrums are, in general, quieter than Heidi's are, but they're just softer too. He cries more. He's a lot more sensitive, I notice. For him, a lot of times, even if it is a different cause, what he needs in that moment is attention. He needs me to get on his level, give him a hug, and calm him. Giving him some sort of discipline when he's in that tantrum mode will not be helpful because he's hurt and he's upset, and you can see that in his face and in his reaction. So during his tantrums, because they are so sensitive and so soft, I feel like he definitely needs a very loving response. And he may need some discipline once he's calmed down, but what he needs in that moment is my love and my kindness and patience, which can be very difficult at times, especially when they're all having tantrums at once. But because that's his attitude and that's his personality, I know in general I can react to his tantrums with a big hug and some cuddling, and he'll usually calm down pretty quickly. Heidi is my biggest tantrum culprit, and I think it's because she's a three-nager. I mean, she is pretty sassy. And it's awesome. I love the sassy personality. I think I know who she got it from. But sometimes it can get her into a little bit of trouble. So dealing with her tantrums is a lot more case by case. Whereas with Gideon and Georgia, I can pretty much deal with each tantrum the same way. With Heidi, I have to be a lot more observant and really read her and read what the tantrum is about. So that's where knowing the cause of the tantrum is really important. With Heidi, the cause of the tantrum changes my reaction. So if it is something like hunger or sleepiness, I will try to treat it with food or a nap. And a lot of times she doesn't want a nap, but I will make sure she gets that alone time. I will pick her up gently, try to be kind, take her upstairs and lay her down in her bed and tell her she needs some alone time, and then close the door and walk away. She might still be screaming, she might be kicking the bed, she might be super upset, but I know it's because she's sleepy and tired. So I make sure she gets that alone time, and hopefully that will alleviate some of that. And usually she'll calm herself down. She has her blankie up there, so she'll cry it out, calm herself down, and then come down when she's ready and get a really big hug from me. If I think she's having an attention-based tantrum, I will talk to her, let her know that's still not acceptable behavior to have when you want attention, but let her know that she's got my attention now. What is it that you wanted to show me? What is it that you need to get from me? Do you need a hug? Can we read a book together? I want to make sure that, like I said with Georgia, I'm not rewarding the tantrum, so I make sure I get her calmed down first. We talk about why she had that tantrum. She might get a timeout if she needs one. And then a lot of times I can just ask her, do you need me? Do you need mommy? And she'll be like, yes. And then I can give her that attention once she's calmed down. So again, I'm not rewarding the tantrum, I'm rewarding the calm reaction. All her other tantrums that kind of fall under the grumpy attitude or change in schedule or change in general, things that she can't really control a whole lot, I really try to focus on case by case. And I know that's not super helpful, but if she's not harming anyone, if she's not like lashing out and trying to hit or kick people, then a lot of times she just needs to get it out of her system. And that's so hard for me because her tantrums are loud and honestly, they're frustrating and annoying and I don't really want to deal with them. I just want to yell at her to get to her room and calm down, but that's not super helpful. So what I've been trying to do is again, take her up to her room or a safe space and tell her you need to calm down. I know that you're upset. I know that you're having a rough time right now, but this isn't acceptable behavior to express that. One thing I've started doing is giving her alternatives. So I'm telling her this isn't acceptable behavior, but then what is acceptable behavior? What can she do instead? So I give her some options. So instead of throwing a tantrum when you're sad or angry or upset, what are things you can do instead? So the options that I usually give her are come get a hug. That's always a good one. Hug it out. Read a book and just sit calmly until you are relaxed and calm again. So even if she's angry and crying, if she can just grab a book and look at the pictures until it calms her down. One of my favorites is grab a pillow off the couch and squeeze it with all your might. When she's angry, that's usually the one she picks. The alternative for an angry tantrum is to squeeze a pillow in my head, and that's something that we've started to work on, and that's what she's been doing, and it's a safe thing for her to do. It gets out some of that anger. Another thing I've told her she can do if she gets to that point where she's upset and needs to express her emotions is she can cry, and crying is okay. We need to work on crying and not shrieking or screaming. There is a difference. I say it's okay to cry. If you don't want us to see you cry, then you can go upstairs and cry. You could lay on the couch and cry. You could, again, hold a pillow or an animal and cry. Crying is okay, but I'm trying to teach her the difference between crying and screaming, which is a very difficult thing to teach her. Another option I give her is to sing a song. She can sing one to herself or ask me to sing her one. And then the very last thing, which is actually usually the first thing we do, is deep breathing. In, out. We do this every time she has a tantrum. I breathe with her deeply, slowly, let her see that, and I need it too to help me calm down because usually her tantrums get me riled up. So we look at each other, we breathe. Sometimes I have her do motions with it, with her arms, or like this. Sometimes I hold out my hand and have her breathe on it. Just something that gets her breathing a little bit slower. It keeps her from screaming because she's having to focus on breathing, and just calms her down really quickly. So that's usually actually the first thing we do, and then she picks one of those other strategies that are healthier ways to handle her emotions. So that is my tantrum theory. I hope it was interesting to you guys. It's really been a learning experience for me to try to deal with tantrums in a more healthy way with these kids, especially as they're getting older and having more tantrums. And I'm assuming that at some point, as they get older, they stop having tantrums. I just haven't gotten there yet. But these things that I've shared with you have really helped me to look at the cause of the tantrum and then determine how I should react, and then hopefully try to avoid tantrums in the future. I know I can't always make sure that they get a long enough nap, or I can't keep their schedule the exact same every day, but having these tools in my little parenting tool bag has helped me out a bunch, and I hope it helps you guys too. If you guys have any other suggestions on what to do for tantrums, or how you guys determine what the cause of a tantrum is, leave it in the comment section down below. I would love to hear from you guys and hear how you're dealing with your children's behavior. If you like this video, please give me a big old thumbs up. The button is right there. And then if you want to know more about me and my journey with motherhood, you can hit the subscribe button and then hit the bell icon to be notified every time I post, which is every Friday. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a great day. Bye.